7.5 feet away and was overseeing employees 2 and 3, who were electricians, and they assessed 600 amp breaker and a 480 volt, 1800 amp square gauge switchboard. The breaker failed and they decided to replace it. Employees 2 and 3 removed the cover, exposed energized parts of the 600 amp breaker. There was a 900 amp breaker at the bottom of the switchboard that was marked with emergency service disconnect above the breaker and panel, below the breaker, which made these electricians think that that breaker would turn off, the power to the switchboard. Employee number 2 turned off the 900 amp breaker and then tested the 600 amp breaker to see if it was de-energized. They found that it was still energized. They couldn't understand. So employee number 2 and 3 were on their knees on either side of the switchboard. So while kneeling by the switchboard, they decided to remove the cover from the 900 amp breaker, and when an electrical arc was produced. Surprisingly enough, removing a cover board from a panel board, especially at higher voltages, so it's 480 volts. At higher voltages, of course, voltage from Ohm's law is what?
Is it power?
No. What's voltage? Like the voltage is
pressure.
Right, the pressure. So at a higher voltage, higher pressure, okay, when you put something that's conductive near a terminal, sometimes you don't even have to touch it. If I just get close enough, if this were 10,000 volts and I get within 3 feet of it, that very well may jump across the air and come get to me to get to ground. And so in a case like this, they removed the cover, probably got the cover too close to a terminal inside that breaker, and it caused the arc to be produced. And once that arc is produced, then you're off to the races. So the electric arc struck employee 2, threw him to the floor, causing head contusions. Employee 1 received minor burns to his abdomen. Employee 3 received second and third degree burns to his face, neck, and forearms outside his cotton shirt. The switchboard arc burned and smoked until the power was shut off. All 3 employees had breathing difficulties because of smoke inhalation. Employees had no training on the hazard associated with working near exposed energized parts. Additionally, they weren't aware that the proximity to exposed parts was a hazard, or that they needed PPE or protective barriers or insulating materials when exposed to energized parts. So remember, employee 1 was standing about 8 foot away. So when this happened, he got knocked to the ground. Okay, so he was 8 feet away when this arc and explosion happened, and he got thrown to the ground. So he wasn't even really standing near there. 2 and 3 were right in the brunt of it. So they were transported to a hospital where employee 1 and 3 received medical attention for burns. Employee 2 was treated for another condition. After administering medical care, employees 1 and 3 were released. Employee 2 remained hospitalized. All right, July 7th, 2010, employee 1 of Dollar Incorporated. Interesting name for a company. Let's get it done. Hurry up, hurry up. Gotta get that done. Checking the voltage on a 60 horsepower motor panel. Touched L1 and L2 leads in the electrical panel. This resulted in a ground and arc flash. Employee 1 received first degree burns to his hands. So working in a panel board without even gloves. Okay, that's an important thing that we're going to, by the end of today, you'll definitely understand when you're working with live parts, you definitely need gloves at a minimum. At approximately 1:45 p.m. on January 6th, there's another incident. Employee 1 installing new meters on a multiple paneled electrical cabinet that was energized around that area he was working on. He was not wearing approved insulated electrical gloves, using a voltmeter measuring the continuity of 2 wires connected to a new replacement meter when an arc flash occurred. He sustained second degree burns to his left fingers and both hands and was hospitalized. And finally, the last 3. June 29, 2007, employee 1, electrician, changing the ballast system on a fluorescent light fixture at the Oklahoma State Capitol building. Electrical power to the fixture not turned off. He was electrocuted. August 8, 2007, employee 1, changing out a ballast in a light fixture when he was electrocuted. December 1st, 2009, employee 1 of Viking Electric LLC, changing a ballast in a fluorescent light fixture. While changing the ballast, he was electrocuted and killed. No further information was provided. It's kind of a double entendre there. How many people have heard somebody say, I think I just got electrocuted? Yeah, they're full of crap, because if they were electrocuted, they would be dead. That's your final electric shock. If you're electrocuted, you're dead. If you survived, you were shocked. Simple thing. So to actually say electrocuted and killed,
Right.
yeah, he was already killed. All right, so let's talk about the hazards specifically. So now that we've scared everybody to death and you want to get into carpentry, let's talk about the hazards and what we can do to prevent them. So as I said before, the three hazards directly related to electricity: shock, arc flash, and arc blast. So let's talk about shock first. And at the top of this chart, we have 10 to 20 milliamps. How many amps is a milliamp? Or how many milliamps does it take to make an amp? 1,000, right? Yeah, milli is 1/1000th of an amp. Now, you guys are on the ball. A lot of people don't know their metric system. So 10 to 20 milliamps, and the reason this is at the top of the chart because that is the safe threshold that a person can sustain, or the amount of current that a body can sustain with pretty much no damage. Probably some discomfort, but little to no damage. So you've probably seen a chart very similar to this. Your body does have a resistance to it. And basically we have in the center, we have the physiological effect of what the shock feels like. Here's the current on the right-hand side. And again, this is 1 second of contact. That's an important factor too. The longer you're connected to something, the worse it is. A little side story, my stepson, he's 14 now. I think like 4 years ago, my neighbor had one of those shocking pens that you did. The thing hurt. I mean, you touch the thing, click it or whatever. I mean, it made me throw it on the ground anyway. And so, my neighbors, they like to stand around and drink beer and all that stuff. And so they're standing out there and they're having a contest, see how long you can hold the pen, before you let go. And so lo and behold, I come down the next day and I see my stepson, who was 10 at the time, and he's in the living room like, holding on to this thing. I'm like, what a jackass, like, what are you doing? And the bottom line is like the longer you get shocked, your body reacts to it. It's like, so you get shocked, of course you want to yank your hand away, it's uncomfortable. If you're pinned to it or you can't get off of it, then it causes more damage. Then your body begins to panic, you start to sweat. Once you start sweating, of course, then your body resistance goes down, adrenaline starts pumping, your body chemistry changes. A lot of things start happening, and basically for the worse. So basically, this is at 1 second contact. So 1 milliamp, you might feel a little shock, a little threshold. So generally, generally your body has a resistance of about 100,000 ohms. So it would take about 100 volts. So touching a 120 volt receptacle or something like that would probably be produce about 1 milliamp of shock. 5 milliamps of current accepted as maximum harmless current. Okay. 10 to 20 milliamps, again, that's the beginning of sustained muscular contraction or can't let go current. 100 to 300 milliamps, ventricular fibrillation, that's where your heart stops beating, maybe your breathing stops, the respiratory function continues at that one. And then 6 amps is, you're probably not going to make it. Sustained ventricular contraction followed by normal heart rhythm, defibrillation, temporary respiratory paralysis, possible burns.